Hi, welcome to Coffee with a Therapist with your lovely local for some, friendly therapist, Jenny Helms, Calvin. I want to give the disclaimer real quick. This is not therapy. This is not to substitute therapeutic advice. And I often encourage folks to take what they learn on here and use that in therapy if you're already in therapy. This is supposed to be helpful and edutainment, which is entertainment and education, and not to be used in replacement of therapy work. Therapy work is its own animal. We are all unique individuals, and I am speaking from my experiences and my educational background. However, every person, it's just like with medicine. You can't have a doctor speak on here and diagnose you. You'll need to work with a professional to really get all of that full diagnostic and therapeutic and treatment plans for your specific needs. So without going too far down that rabbit hole, I just wanted to preface that and to talk today about perfectionism and what I would call the second wave of that, which is good enoughism. So admittedly, me and a lot of my clients are folks that have struggled with perfectionism in the past. Typically, this is a trauma response that is built from a place of trying to protect ourselves, in so much that usually folks develop perfectionism because there's this idea of, if I'm perfect, if I do everything correctly, if I am always showing up, it protects me from pain. It protects me from the wounds of what happens when I'm not perfect, or how people in my environment may have responded to me not being perfect, or my worthiness I felt was based on that, or even had people in my life that told me my worthiness was based on how I performed. And so the more perfect and performing I am, the more I am lovable, the more I am worthy. And so for many people, they develop perfectionism from a place of protection and anxiety. And lots of folks, as they've gone through their journey, they heal their perfectionism or get better at saying, hey, it's okay for me to make mistakes. However, I would say sometimes the next layer for folks, some people go right through this, but others of us, myself included, have come to terms with realizing that there's another layer to this. And I call it good enoughism, which again, I think is progress from perfectionism. So if you are struggling with perfectionism, the next best thing is to hold a space for what is good enough. However, for some folks, they set that bar differently for themselves, the good enough bar of even just this idea of continuously having to prove that you are a good person, that you are good, that you are just like a decent human being. And so the next layer that people often have to work through is this good enoughism, where their bar is still placed super high and they are still finding themselves wanting to achieve certain things, needing to meet certain goals, needing to do certain things to feel worthy, to feel good enough. And when they're not reaching those goals and when they're not doing those things, they still struggle with those feelings of shame, worthlessness, needing to defend themselves as being good people. And that's commonly how it could show up. And so I wanted to talk about that because while some folks might say it's okay not to be perfect, in the same sentence, if they're keeping it 100% real with themselves while they're okay with not being perfect, they're still not okay being in struggle. They're still not okay not reaching certain criteria for themselves. And that's not to say that we can't have goals. I mean, I'm a big believer in having goals and doing things. However, where that comes from matters. If we're doing it to chase our worth, and when we're not doing that thing or not doing well, does that mean we're not worthy? Asking ourselves those questions. Are we still trying to prove ourselves? Are we still trying to protect ourselves by being good enough? Or are we chasing after things and goals because it genuinely brings us joy? It comes from a place of values for ourselves that aren't fueled by fear and insecurity. Are we enough on the days where we're not performing? Are we able to listen to ourselves and know that it's okay that sometimes we have goals and sometimes plans change, and sometimes we we have different days where we might be off. Are we still okay? Are we still able to hold space for ourselves and listen to all those other parts of our lives? Or are we basing our worth on these specific goals and being good enough? Again, I know this is maybe going down a rabbit hole that like some folks maybe haven't considered, but I think it's real to think about the ways that while we may no longer be perfectionist, where are we still keeping ourselves on the line when it comes to our self-worth? When it comes to us feeling like we're proving, or I say proving or protecting because those are like the main things that I've seen in myself and in others. When I say proving, it's like, where are you hanging up your ego hat? Like, what areas of your life are you saying like, I need this to be a certain way, or I feel crappy about myself, right? And we all have them. Nobody, I think, is immune to that. And it's not to say that you're like a bad person for having it. It's just something as far as like when we're on this healing journey, those are some areas that you might want to look into and see what's really going on there. And what does it have to do with my ego and my identity and the ways that I'm still maybe trying to protect or, defend myself or heal myself from wounds from the past. And if it's not from that, cool, totally cool. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's genuinely like that is just something that brings someone complete joy. However, you'll know that it's not based in ego or protection or proving oneself if your ego is unaffected when you're not doing that thing. If you're still feeling worthy and good, even when that thing isn't showing up in your lives, and you don't feel the need for people to recognize that thing in you. Like you can kind of like, you might notice it in yourself too on the things where you're like, oh, I want people to know this about me. Or you might find yourself subconsciously interjecting it into conversations, or at least wanting people to see that in you, even if you don't interject it. And those are those areas that it's like, maybe there's something more that we're still hanging our worth on, that we're still trying to be good enough, that we're still trying to prove or protect. That's the basic gist of what I wanted to share today. Where is that maybe showing up for you in your life? I know I've had to work through some of those pieces in my own work where like I realized like as I was feeling really good about what I was doing at work, some of it came from that genuine enjoyment and like the mission and the values. And then there were parts I don't like to admit were like identity and ego based. And I have done that, my own work on that too, where I wanted to take that into my own therapy sessions and say like, what is this about for me? And what is this related to? For me, hint, hint, wink, wink, it's usually stuff from the past. Again, I'm not here to like share all that with you, but I do want to like be vulnerable and real enough to say like, this impacts, I'm sharing this because this impacts my own life as well. And it's been part of my own journey. It's been part of my client's journey. And it's just something to think about. If you're a recovering perfectionist, like myself, you might be especially vulnerable to this because there's something about this relationship we have with our worthiness and our shame that makes us prone to hanging our hats on certain parts of our lives as part of something that we need to prove or protect. And I keep saying those two words because I'm like, it's usually about proving something with our ego, or protecting ourselves from perceived harm that may no longer exist, right? That's a silly part about trauma. Like sometimes we're trying to protect ourselves against something that literally no longer exists, but it used to. And I see that a lot with my clients. I see that with myself. And it's just so funny how as human beings, like if we've had a traumatic period of our life where we truly did have to protect ourselves, it's like our brain can catch up to being like, hey, it's 2023, but our body and our subconscious behaviors and how we like move in the world is almost still stuck in that state unless we really process and work through it. So long story short, where is this showing up in your life? If you feel comfortable enough sharing it, totally up to you. Or if you see this in other people's lives, or you can just provide examples, leave that in the comments. Do you have specific questions about this? I would be happy to answer them. Again, leave that in the comments, DM me. And if you're liking my content, if you're finding this useful to just have these little nuggets of like contemplation and self-reflection, please subscribe to my channel. That would mean so much to me. As creators, it truly does mean a lot. And I don't want to go on a ramble about that, but really it does. So if you could do that and show me some love, I would much appreciate it. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your days or day.